Hi everyone. So as we speak, really about an hour from now, a little less than an hour, is the precise full moon point. But effectively, you would say yesterday, today, tomorrow is full moon territory, with today being the most intense. Now, before I continue, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to the channel if you have not yet subscribed, because it really helps the channel. If you're wondering why I mention this frequently, one of the reasons is that I noticed that out of every 100 views in my videos, only 60 people are subscribed, so 40 out of 100 people are not subscribed. And subscribing is completely free, but it really helps the channel, so please subscribe. All right, so back to the full moon. The full moon is happening at 23 plus degrees Aries, Libra. That's how full moons work. The moon has to be on the other side of the sun. This means if you know your own chart and you happen to have planets in this region of the zodiac of either Aries or Libra, especially the sun, but really it'll work with any planets, as well as Capricorn Cancer, because that's the quadrature, the axis that also is affected. This full moon becomes more meaningful, more important, potentially more troublesome as well, because the full moon tends to raise energy, and if your system isn't balanced, it can lead to ups and downs and energy oscillations. But overall, I tend to really like the full moon, because the full moon energy always has the potential for greater clarity. It illuminates the situation. I notice my mind tends to be more clear. Whatever I understand better. And you can also see this, by the way, in that, for example, in the Indian system, they will do festivals on the full moons. They don't pick the new moons for that. It's the full moon that they really revere. And you also see that lots and lots and lots of prominent individuals are born on full moons, because it confers, at minimum, a measure of brightness, of awake energy, of clarity, of creativity. Of course, with the attendant risks, it's true. But nevertheless, it's a powerful alignment. Now, the thing is, you then look at, well, what is it finding? Who is it affecting? That we know, and of course, who else in this case? The orange president happens to have his Saturn 23 plus Cancer, so it's right in there, precisely square, the full moon that is. The full moon is cutting across Aries Libra, squaring into his Cancer Saturn in the 12th house. Now, this is a remarkable reflection of the jam he has put himself in, because when you're agitating Saturn in your chart through squares, which is what this full moon is doing, it's going to feel more difficult. No question. This would be true for anyone that happens to have Saturn there, or Saturn, for example, in Capricorn at 23 degrees. But in his case, he has created this all by himself through his own actions, by essentially getting rid of all his friends. His friends in this case are U.S. allies, trading partners, and by way of insults, by way of threats, by way of the policy that he has been trying to implement, he seems to be hell-bent on turning friends into enemies. And to make matters worse, because of his nature, meaning he never wants to admit he's made a mistake, backing down just isn't in the repertoire. So then he has to look for a way to save face, which to some extent he has already done. Because keep in mind that if you say that things are just going really, really well, not so much, in that if you look at the situation and you analyze it clearly, the reason he pulled back was because he saw the bond market cratering, meaning when people are looking for safety up to now, for decades, the place to go to is U.S. securities, because then you're pretty much guaranteed that you'll make some percentage, which around now is 4 to 4.5%. But what happened during this latest debacle and pull away that he did is that they could see, and I'm sure people told him, and I'm sure he himself realized what was happening. People were fleeing those securities. They were not going there. Hasn't happened, I can't think of when, as a matter of fact. It's possible that it hasn't happened in decades. And so that's a major, major, major slap in the face. Meanwhile, he has now turned it into a all-out trade war with China, and China isn't backing down because they've been preparing themselves for this. And of course, being the ultra-dominant male who wants to control everything and overpower everyone, he wants Xi Jinping to call him. It doesn't sound like that's going to happen. So now he's got to look for another way to spin that, because the way the situation right now, it's almost like a trade embargo. What we're guaranteed under the current scenario is higher prices for everyone, significantly higher prices, and no actual resolution to anything. Now in this chart, this makes so much sense in that the moon, the Aries sun, Libra moon, the full moon, right, that's what I meant by the moon, cuts across his 3rd and 9th houses. That's where the full moon is, and then squares into the 12th. Well, the 3rd 9 axis, that's foreign governments up in the 9th. Right? It's also the media, what is published, what we read about, everyone is reading about it. And I'm aware also that it's not just here, it's everywhere. I know that European newspapers, I've read them, they carry the exact same story, and they're all pinning it on him. I mean, he's trying to spin it for his media, the Fox News, Newsmax, that section of the media is trying to help him. They'll do everything they can to mute the message, but the truth of things is out there, and he needs to find a way out. But because it's triggering the Saturn at the moment, there doesn't appear to be a way, certainly not with his character. And I can guarantee you, he is not comfortable right now. There's no possible way. That's one thing about astrology, that the proximity of planets, in fact, that's probably the brilliance of Western astrology. There is greater focus in Western astrology on the precision of the geometry. So if an aspect is close, 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 you feel it more than if it's degrees away. And here's also where you see that on this level, the full moon is affecting Xi Jinping as well. I don't know his birth time, but I know his birthday. And isn't it, I don't know if the word is ironic, interesting, perhaps a little crazy, that he's born June 15th and Trump is born June 14th. Of course, Trump is born years before. Xi Jinping is 1953, so he's younger. But Xi Jinping is a Gemini as well, and he has planets in Gemini, like Jupiter, for example. And then he has Cancer and Libra planets that act as hooks for this full moon, but not with the same precision as is the case for Trump. Now, the fact that he's June 15th, which is the next day, that's the sun, and so Xi Jinping has been under a lot of pressure as well. Saturn has also been squaring him, and really still is. This is not a simple thing for him at all either. Right? I'm sure he's not happy. I'm sure he's feeling the tension. But it's not as pressurized as is the case for Trump. At the same time, though, they're both under Jupiter. So Jupiter is in Gemini. Now, because of that, Trump is very unlikely to back down, because the thing with him was whenever Jupiter is ascendant, by which I mean it's strong, I mean it's in his sun sign and it's approaching the opposition to his moon, the conjunction to his sun, he gets all full of himself and he thinks he's on the right track, and he gets all confident and he thinks everything is fine, or he talks himself into it, or other people tell him how great he is. That's the nature of Jupiter when it gets corrupted. And so it's very unlikely that he's going to back down. But the nature of the situation with the Saturn being pressurized is that it's not going to work out well. And China is very unlikely to cut him any slack. And so it's a simple matter of waiting it out in terms of the Jupiter it needs to get out of Gemini, but that doesn't happen until June, right? In the meantime, as I understand it, the Chinese have the upper hand. Not only that, but it's now making the news that South Korea, Japan, Canada, they're trying to align themselves with the Chinese as trading partners, because the U.S. has become, if not in the case of Canada, they almost see us as an enemy now, but certainly not a reliable trading partner. So it's a really, really bad situation. But from the perspective of wanting Trump to fail, let's just be, straight up about it, because that's really what it is. We need this guy to fail. He's doing it to himself, plain and simple. He's set this up in a way where there's really no way out of the jam that he's in. Now, of course, again, people often will say things like, oh, does this mean that he'll be stopped next week or next month? No, I'm not saying that, not necessarily, but I also have to address something here. People say, sometimes in the comments, he always gets away with everything. Okay, let me clarify something. If you go back to the Trump era, which begins in 2015, 2016, he was on a general upswing of sorts because he had all kinds of things happen in 16, 17, 18. There were all kinds of problems, and it was by no means a smooth journey. But if you say, well, he was there, everything was okay, he didn't get taken down, that's true. But if you start counting from late 2019, well, not that late, the fall of 2019, when he was first caught with that attempt to extort Zelensky, and then he was impeached, although he was not convicted. But that was the downturn, because that took us into 2020, then COVID appeared. He grossly mismanaged COVID, which is what led, as I see it, to Biden's election. It was much more a rejection of Trump. This is the key, that people always vote in largest measure against whoever is there, because it's very difficult to govern for anyone, no question, but it's especially difficult when you're a complete idiot. Then it makes it even harder, right? So 2020, things were not going well for him. He also caught COVID himself, but he overcame that. But then he lost the election. And if you keep going from there, 2021, 2022, 2023, and into 2024, you can't really say, well, things were going along swimmingly. It was pretty hard. He was really teetering. If you recall, back in the middle of last year, up to June, he had just been convicted. I mean, things were, the Stormy Daniels case, there were other cases pending. But what happened? Jupiter entered his sign. That's what this guy works with. Is Jupiter is there, helps him out. So that's where it's been. He gets elected under it. Now it's about to leave the sign in June of this year. And my contention has always been with this man, it is not going to end well. But we have to have enough patience to see it out. It's that simple. He has health vulnerabilities in the chart. He has political liabilities, which you're seeing in front of your eyes, because this is making it very hard. He's tarnishing himself, and when he doesn't have the Jupiter energy to help him, then all the other planets are radiating their energy, meaning Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Eris. They're all very poorly placed. They're pressurizing him. Hence why, for example, on one level is the health and well-being, but it's the totality of it. It's very, very challenging. So, point being, we have to be patient enough to assume we may have to deal with this for who knows how long, but take every win that you can get. Anytime something happens that pushes back on him, it's a good thing. I feel people are doing really, really well. By people, I mean the resistance. There are lots of demonstrations happening. Bernie and AOC are doing a big rally today. The public is very, very aware. And here we can also thank our media ecosystem, because you should ask yourself sometime, how do you know anything? It's because you're reading it somewhere or you're hearing it somewhere. There are lots and lots and lots of data points. And as long as people remain conscious of what is going on and take as much action as possible, my feeling is we're going to be okay, but it could be a while. And as I've said before, the key is still going to be the elections. Am I saying he's not going to try to cheat? Oh, he'll try. I'm saying he's not going to be successful. Or let's put it this way, he's not going to be successful enough to turn the tide in his favor. And that's really pretty much what we have to focus on. Right? In the meantime, for a couple of months, you may see him get some things in his favor because of the Jupiter. Right? But once the Jupiter leaves, meaning in June, situation starts to go the other way. And then we'll be able to analyze other planets, wherever they are at that point, based on what will happen up to that point. That's the thing with astrology, that you need the information in order to then get a sense of where it's going. It's like having visibility. In the meantime, I hope this full moon is great for you. I have found this one to be quite good. The energy feels like an up energy, although I've said in prior videos that I've often noticed for me, it's almost impossible not to have a bit of a low somewhere in there. But so far, it feels really, really good. I hope it's the same for you as well.